Well, the trial for a man accused of brutally murdering and taking videos and photos of the deaths of two Alaska Native women begins next week. Investigative reporter Rebecca Abouchuk has an update tonight.
This morning, his defense attorney picked away at statements Brian Smith made to police back in 2019, hoping to get parts of those statements ruled inadmissible. Also at issue were suggestions by the defense that the Department of Corrections was recording or listening to conversations and reading letters between Smith and his attorney and Smith and his wife.
Please rise.
This begins what is expected to be a 3 or 4 week trial.
Mr. Smith, are you on the phone?
Yes, I'm here.
Brian Smith listening on the phone from prison as accused of killing Veronica Abouchuk and Kathleen Henry.
Can I say something, please?
No, right, Brian, unless it's about, moving to another phone again, don't say anything substantive.
Your attorney will have an ample opportunity after talking with you to make whatever arguments you think need to be made about.
Authorities allege Smith tortured and killed Henry at an Anchorage hotel room before dumping her body along the Seward Highway. Police say Smith admitted to killing Abouchuk, and the medical examiner confirmed a skull found with a gunshot wound along the Glen Highway belonged to her. But there are many things Smith told police.
And so while the jury might be able to hear Mr. Smith saying it, they can't hear the officer saying it.
But why not?
Some of which his defense attorney tried, mostly unsuccessfully, to get thrown out.
He went on the interview to say, that was just a fantasy, I never did that, and he directly denies it later on in the interrogation.
Monday and Tuesday, prospective jurors report to court.
And I exceeded my expectations. We've got 50 people coming in Monday at 8:30. So that I didn't think I'd get that. We've got another 39 or so coming in at 8:30 on Tuesday.
An instruction that says the video is the best evidence or something like that.
Prosecutor Brittany Dunlap noted that according to their responses, virtually none of the prospective jurors know any details about the case. Now, regarding the defense claims that Department of Corrections staffers might be spying on the defendant's calls with attorneys, a DOC official told the judge no one is listening to, recording, or reading any of Smith's communications with his lawyers.
You got a little bit of a preview of the subject matter from the questionnaires that you filled out, but is there anybody who, when you sat here today and Judge Saxby read the indictment and read all the charges, like, wow, that's a lot. I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I can handle this.
An SD memory card said to contain video of a horrific murder is a key piece of evidence in the case against accused murderer Brian Smith. Now, Smith was in an Anchorage courtroom for the start of his trial today. 15 of the 16 people needed for the jury were chosen, 12 jurors plus 3 alternates. Rebecca Abouchuk was at the courthouse today and has an update for us now.
Evidence presented in this trial is expected to be graphic and disturbing, and at least one recording the images allegedly show a naked woman being beaten and strangled in a hotel room, charges say. So today, a lot of the questions to possible jurors focus on how would someone react to graphic video.
All rise for the jury.
Monday morning, dozens of people arrived at the Anchorage courthouse to report for jury duty. Over the next several hours, they were asked a series of questions.
So what we're looking for here are the jurors who could sit on a criminal case that involves allegations of murder, sexual assault, that may involve some graphic images, and it can last for the entire month of February.
The underlying question is, do you have something in your personal makeup or history that makes you uniquely situated that you shouldn't be a fair, or you couldn't be a fair juror?
As the defense and prosecution peppered the prospective jurors in this case, the man at the center of this trial, Brian Smith, watched on. Smith is charged with murders of 30-year-old Kathleen Jo Henry and 53-year-old Veronica Abouchuk. Henry died during the first week of September 2019, strangled and killed in a hotel room. After his arrest for Henry's murder, police say Smith confessed to shooting Abouchuk sometime in 2017 or 18. This case gained national attention when a person turned over to police an SD card labeled homicide at Midtown Marriott.
You've heard the nature of the charges. They're clearly very, very serious.
Evidence presented in this trial is expected to be graphic and disturbing. There'll be explicit photos and videos, and a case expected to last almost all month.
We'll be able to find out who needs to come back tomorrow.
By Monday afternoon, 15 people were chosen for jury duty, with one more to be added Tuesday morning.
And those already chosen for jury duty were told to report to court tomorrow at 11 o'clock for the possible start of opening statements.
All right, thanks, Rebecca. Well, it took years for the case to reach the courtroom, but today a jury heard opening statements in the case against Brian Smith. He is accused of killing 2 women and, in at least one case, taking video of the brutal death. Our investigative reporter Rebecca Abouchuk was in the courtroom today and has the update for us. Rebecca?
That video is at the center of this case, but the defense paints a picture intended to get the jury to question the origins of the video, while the prosecution detailed pretty horrific scenes leading to death.
You'll see videos in this case. You like to work with computers.
As opening statements began, the family of a murder victim watched. The sister of 53-year-old Veronica Abouchuk was only able to listen for about 30 minutes before leaving the courtroom in tears. Brian Smith is on trial for both the death of Abouchuk and 30-year-old Kathleen Henry.
He strangles her, releases, strangles, releases. She's bloodied, she's beaten, she's naked.
Footage of Henry was turned over to police.
He says, you live, you die. You live, you die. He's playing almost a cat and mouse game with her.
Dunlap says Smith narrates his video as if for an audience, and that after being questioned by Anchorage police for 8 hours, Smith said this.
You guys in a rush to go home? Are you guys in a rush? I know I'm gonna burn already, is what he says. And then he confesses to the killing of Veronica Abouchuk.
But really what they have is a video came of very questionable and still largely unknown origin.
The defense then asked the jurors, why did it take so long for the video to get to police? Also, why did the woman who took it tell so many different stories about how she got hold of the videos?
But suffice to say, it's changed a whole bunch in 4 years. She's lied about it several times, material details.
And prosecutors will begin laying out their evidence first thing tomorrow morning.
Good evening, everyone. A memory card with videos and pictures of a deadly killing is a key piece of evidence in the Brian Smith murder trial. But how police ended up with the SD card is more complex than first known. Investigative reporter Rebecca Abouchuk has the update tonight. Rebecca?
Kassler gave police the pictures and the videos of a brutal beating that led to the death of a woman and the manipulation of her body. And the images were on an SD card labeled Homicide at Midtown Marriott. But today we heard Kassler tell the story of how she got the images. First, she told police she had found a memory card containing the gruesome images on a street in Anchorage. She later changed her story and today testified that she stole Smith's phone from his truck and that she then transferred the pictures to an SD card that she labeled Homicide at Midtown Marriott. Kassler said that she initially lied about it because she didn't want to be arrested for theft or attempted prostitution. Smith faces 14 counts, including first and second-degree murder, assault, and tampering with evidence in the deaths of Kathleen Henry and Veronica Abouchuk. Today, Kassler was asked about editing video.
Despite being untruthful about initially how you came into possession of the SD card, is everything that you saw, is what you're reporting to the jury, everything that you saw on the SD card true and accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
Aside from copying it onto the SD card, from the phone onto the SD card, did you alter it in any way?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have video editing software that you could do that?
No.
Okay.
And tomorrow, Smith's attorney will cross-examine Kassler and is expected to try to raise enough questions in the jurors' minds about that video that it helps create some reasonable doubt for the jury.
Well, a man facing murder charges sent a letter to Alaska's news source today. His trial is already underway with horrific video expected to be shown to the jury on Monday. Investigative reporter Rebecca Abouchuk has the story tonight. Rebecca?
Well, this morning, an 11-page handwritten letter dated Tuesday from accused killer Brian Smith was delivered to Alaska's news source from the Anchorage Correctional Complex. The Department of Corrections confirms the letter was written and sent by Smith. He faces 14 counts, including first and second-degree murder, assault, and tampering with evidence for the deaths of 2 Alaska Native women. Smith was arrested in 2019 after police were given an SD card with footage of a horrific death inside an Anchorage hotel room. The SD card had been labeled homicide at Midtown Marriott. Now, in the letter to Alaska's news source, Smith lists several grievances, including accusations that the Department of Corrections is improperly reading his mail. DOC strongly denied that claim in court last week. The woman who found the SD card first told police she had found it on a street in Anchorage. She later changed her story yesterday, testifying that she stole Smith's phone from his truck and transferred the pictures to an SD card that she herself labeled homicide at Midtown Marriott. Smith asked Alaska's news source to investigate further. I only got to read your article today. I can't talk about the case. All I need to say is that this latest news of questionable source of the SD card is something I suspected and pointed out 4 years ago already. No one believed me. It is a very serious issue. I will let you find out for yourself. I can simply nudge you in the right direction. And the judge ended court early today, saying he is not ready for the jury to see those images just yet.
And I think it is important in this case to get all the ducks lined up before the video is played. So if the testimony comes in as you've just described it, I think it would be admissible, but it's not in yet.
And the prosecution will have to provide additional evidence Monday before the video can be played in court.
All right, thanks, Rebecca. The sounds of a dying woman. That's what prosecutors say they played for jurors this afternoon in the murder trial of Brian Smith. Rebecca Paulsher joins us now with details of a very disturbing day in court.
And Brian Smith is on trial for killing 2 women, Kathleen Henry and Veronica Abouchuk. But we can't show you any of the videos jurors saw today because the court limited who could see the images, and we've decided not to air any of the disturbing audio as well. But while listening to the audio in court, family members often looked to the floor and cried. The accused occasionally took notes, but mostly sat with his hands folded in his lap while the videos played, allegedly showing Kathleen Henry's last moments. Jurors initially watched the 12 videos and dozens of still images that were allegedly taken from Smith's phone. An Anchorage detective described what was being played before the jury watched. Another, how Smith later allegedly confessed to the second murder of Abouchuk.
In this one, he continues to strangle Henry and telling her she needs to finish this movie. He makes a comment that asking, do people need to be taught how to die these days? Tells her to take one for the team.
At some point during the interview, did Mr. Smith admit to killing a second person?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And did he actually know the identity of this person?
He did not give her name. However, he identified her via photo.
And Smith's attorney chose not to cross-examine Detective Lee today, but reserved the right to question the detective later at this trial. His questions for Captain Cross were about whether the proper procedures were followed when Smith was asked to identify a photo of Abouchuk. Now, tomorrow, the prosecution expects to play what it calls Smith's confession, and what the defense contends were just unclear comments from a fatigued man who was being badgered by detectives. Mike. But first, a key day in accused killer Brian Smith's murder trial over and over. The jury heard Smith tell police detectives he didn't remember how they showed him, as they showed him photos and played audio from recordings that allegedly showed him murdering Kathleen Henry in a Midtown hotel. Smith is on trial for killing Henry and another Alaska Native woman, Veronica Abouchuk, shortly after Smith became a suspect in October of 2019. Police questioned him for hours when he returned to the Anchorage airport after a flight. Now, he admitted he was in the hotel with a woman, but said the woman left the next morning. And about the images showing a woman being beaten and murdered at the hotel, Smith told detectives he could not explain the photos.
I do not remember this. I don't remember this face. I don't remember. It's my truck. That's my truck. It's my voice. That looks like my shoes. I wear jeans usually. It looks like jeans in the picture. I do not. I've got a blank on. If that's me, I've got a total blank. Something's blocking this out of my mind.
And prosecutors say they will play the rest of the hours-long police interrogation for jurors tomorrow.
Good evening, everyone. More stunning developments in a murder trial that's unfolding in an Anchorage courtroom. Brian Smith told detectives over and over again that he could not remember details surrounding the death of Kathleen Henry. But he had a very different story when it came to the death of Veronica Abouchuk. Rebecca Abouchuk of our investigative unit has details of today's drama in the courtroom.
Well, the jury heard the last part of the police 2019 interrogation of Brian Smith. Smith told them over and over he did not remember Henry or harming her despite videos and still images found on his stolen phone, but he did remember a different violent situation. The jury watched as Smith explained to detectives how he grew angry with a woman he brought back to his home, later identified as Veronica Abouchuk. He said after the woman repeatedly refused to shower, he went to his garage, got a pistol, and just did it, in his words, making a gesture of shooting someone with his fingers. He later drew a map to indicate where he had dumped her body, and when Smith's attorney got a chance to cross-examine one of the detectives from that interrogation, he honed in on how, despite their efforts, they never got a clear confession from Smith to Henry's murder.
With all of those tactics that you used, he never says, actually, you know what, I do believe it, I do remember what I did, right?
I think he does say, I do believe it.
I'm sorry, he said, I do believe it. He doesn't say, I remember having done that, right?
He does not say that.
He says, I believe you because you're showing me this evidence, right?
He does say that.
But he never says, I have an independent recollection of having done this.
No, in fact, I believe I asked him specifically if he has an independent recollection, and he says he does not.
Okay.
And the prosecution case continues tomorrow morning.
In the Brian Smith murder trial, the jury was shown dozens of photos today. At one point, you could hear crying as photos of a small skeleton were revealed. Since the trial began, prosecutors have consistently said the body was Kathleen Henry. Smith was arrested for both the death of Henry and the death of Veronica Abouchuk. Now, today's testimony was less intense or graphic than what the jury has come to expect during the previous watching sessions and listening to the video allegedly showing the last 36 minutes of Henry's life. An FBI agent testified that cell phone location information for Smith's phone shows it was near where their body was found off the Seward Highway. Under cross-examination, the special agent confirmed he was just tracking the phone, not Smith.
AT&T can also provide a location. It's called NELOS, which is the network estimation location of where they believe the phone to be. It's similar to Google location, but they'll provide you a GPS point and they'll provide you a radius of where the phone is likely to be found. So we have the cell towers from the previous slide mapped out here, but then we also have a Google location event that occurred at 1:07 and 25 seconds. And all of this is consistent with being in the area of where the set of human remains were found.
What you're tracking is the location of a cellular device.
That is correct, sir.
You're not putting that in the hands of any particular person.
No, not at that. My job is to look at the phone records for the phone number and determine the general locations.
So, for example, if somebody's phone is stolen, you're not tracking that person's location, you're tracking the location of the person who stole the phone.
It's the device I'm tracking.
Right.
Now, Monday is a holiday, so the jury does not return to the courtroom until next Tuesday. Prosecutors say he brutally murdered 2 Alaska Native women and, in one case, shot video of the woman's beating death. Investigative reporter Rebecca Abouchuk tells us that it has an update now from the Brian Smith murder trial.
The jury was shown 2 handmade modified gun silencers this morning. An undercover police detective with the Anchorage Police Department was up first. And we can't show you his face or let you hear his voice because of safety concerns by the prosecution. So he testified about what was inside a black Adidas bag reported to have been taken from Smith. It contained nylon cords, latex gloves, duct tape, and garbage bags. He also testified about 2 handmade modified gun silencers, saying one of the silencers was made from an oil filter, going into saying that the silencer, quote, works amazingly well for suppressing any sound that fires. Another APD detective also testified about what he photographed at Smith's home.
Magnitude of what appears to be a couple SD cards. Looks like there's a lot of micro SD card readers and some what appears to be SIM cards for cellular communication, as well as external portable flash drives, thumb drives.
The defense has talked about the possibility of Smith testifying on his behalf this week, although a decision has not been made publicly.
So Bislin said, so you did not sleep with the women you killed? And Smith said, not those two.
Prosecutors wrap up their case against accused killer Brian Smith, showing video they say he took, appearing naked, leaning over a woman's body while she lies on a red couch. Smith, on trial for murders, accused of killing 2 Alaska Native women, the homicides gaining national attention after a woman said she found a memory card on the ground labeled "Homicide at Midtown Marriott." Our investigative reporter, Rebecca Palsha, was in court today for the final day of testimony. Rebecca?
Well, there was a brief moment when we thought Smith may testify on his own behalf, but after a short break, the defense said Smith declined. Today was filled with intense emotions as the jury heard text messages and saw video of Smith.
This is from Smith's phone. I have something to show you, period. Something I can't keep for too long.
The lead detective in the Brian Smith murder case read text messages prosecutors say are from the accused killer.
Need to find a secluded spot to meet.
The man he texts with pleaded his Fifth Amendment rights and did not have to testify. But messages prosecutors say are between them was presented to the jury.
And he responds, I was not up, comma, sounds like you were having a lot of fun. I did have fun, wanted to share.
Those moments playing out as the case's judge told the jury to disregard a conversation the prosecution said Smith had with his wife from prison about the deaths of Kathleen Henry and Veronica Abouchuk.
So Bislin said, so you did not sleep with the women you killed? And Smith said, not those two.
That comment upset the family and friends of the 2 murdered Alaska Native women who have been in the gallery every day. Wednesday, the prosecution also showed the jury video of Smith and another person at McDonald's buying 2 Big Macs right after the prosecution said Smith killed Henry and dumped her body along the Seward Highway.
You'll see Mr. Smith's face, head, upper body, shoulders.
Prosecutors also presented video they say Smith took, showing himself naked, leaning over a woman's body while she lays on a red couch. The jury was told it was Abouchuk.
I identified the female on the couch as Veronica.
Both the prosecution and defense finished presenting evidence and are expected to present closing arguments Thursday morning.
And the judge told the jury he does expect them to begin deliberating tomorrow. Rebecca Palsha, Alaska's News Source investigates.
A sense of justice from the family, one of the Alaska Native women murdered by Brian Smith, hours after a jury found him guilty on 14 counts related to 2 murders. The jury took less than 2 hours today to reach that verdict, along with saying Smith tortured one of the women. Our investigative reporter, Rebecca Palsha, joins us now from downtown Anchorage and tells us that will mean at least a 99-year sentence. Rebecca?
Mike, this case came to a close just down the road from where we are now in a separate courthouse. And we were told by the family of one of the victims in this case, Veronica Abouchuk, her sister spoke with us. She told us that this jury brought herself, her sister, and the other victim in this case, Kathleen Henry, peace with that guilty verdict. So Smith was convicted for killing Abouchuk and Kathleen Henry. For 3 weeks, the jury watched horrific footage of a woman being beaten and strangled to death. There were photos showing 2 bodies being manipulated and touched sexually. The defense has maintained that the prosecution never linked the women in the videos to the 2 skeletal remains that were found. They also said that Smith only admitted to killing Abouchuk because he was interrogated by police for 8 hours and was tired. This case gained national attention when videos and pictures of 2 women moments before death were shown to police and given to police for this trial. And as soon as the verdict was read, we heard a family member whisper, Kathleen and Veronica got justice. We spoke with Veronica's sister.
They're at peace now. That's the most important. And for me, her sister, Veronica's sister, and Kathleen's family. It's been too long. And today is life celebration and spiritual celebration.
because Smith was also found guilty of an aggravating factor that he had physically tortured Kathleen Henry. That means that at the bare minimum, he gets 99 years in prison, and that sentencing, that as of now, is scheduled for July. Rebecca Polsha, Alaska's news source.